a very warm welcome here from my home office near Cologne. I'm happy that you all joined here live. And today I want to talk to you about how we can transition from the WorkVisual app to the Procreate app. And first of all, I want to say thank you, because most of you, if not all of you, wrote very nice words when I make it like my public announcement that I will close the doors for the WorkVisual app. And reading all those comments, that was really helpful for me in terms of that very hard decision that I had to take, and seeing that you actually were happy, or not happy, but okay with it and could understand my decision. And as I promised, I want to help you to transition to another app while you have still time, because I will not take the WorkVisual app offline until August this year. So we will have, like, hopefully we all have enough time to get accommodated to a new application. How this webinar works, it is a one-way kind of webinar. So if you have questions, type them either in the chat or in the Q&A. Everything should pop up in the bottom line, actually, when you move your cursor in Zoom. There should be a Q&A or a chat possibility. And you just write your questions, and I try to keep up with those questions in between. I don't have a fixed agenda here, so I don't have a strict plan what I want to cover and how I will cover in which kind of timing or whatever. So I set for myself this could maximum 2 hours, and we see how far we get and what we need and how we can answer and get all your questions done. Good. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are fine with that kind of structure here, which is not existing actually, and then we see how we continue. Hasse has a first question, which is, does it appear and disappear entirely, and can still use it if we don't update our iPad? So basically, here's the thing. So there are two things I'm just exploring with the developers. The one thing is, one thing is definitely, if you have an application on your iPad and you don't update your iPad, even if the application is not existing anymore, you will stay with the app on your iPad. But the danger is that your iPad is at some point switching to automatic updates, and overnight it's gone. So there's no security. Actually, I worked with the old version of brushes that way for 2.5 years or so, I think. It was not existing anymore in the App Store, but I had it on my iPad and never updated my iPad, and I stayed with it for 2.5 years, I think. So that worked. There is another possibility, which I need to understand better, is that we can take the app off the store, but somehow leave it, you can still work with it. But I'm not I'm not a developer, so I need to understand that a bit better. So there are some options, but there is still the danger. I mean, if you update your iPad, most likely in September, it will not work anymore. Perhaps we have some, perhaps you could work longer, but most likely it will not work. As far as Apple now stated that they only accept, they're not happy with programs still running on OpenGL. And there are, in the meantime, OpenGL generators you could use. But the problem with drawing apps is that they are so complex that the generators still generate a lot of work to adapt to. So it's all quite off. Is brushing against your jacket? Okay, lots of noise. Let me see if I can fix that one. Yes, we can try something else. So let me know if that is better, Gunnar. So yeah, that was a question of Hasse. Perfect, very good, thank you. Good, so I mean, what I said for the webinar was, I want to show you how you do different things that you now do with the WorkVisual app that you could do in Procreate as well, right? So therefore, I will switch to my to a camera here, to the document camera, because then you can I think it's better than just streaming the iPad because you can see actually what I'm doing with my pen. So, no, that was wrong. Already stop sharing. Doop. Yes, I know. I don't want to do that. So, plug in, plug out. Trust, I trust. There we are. Give me a second. Already technology bumped my, so here we are. Okay. So you should now be able to see my iPad screen, and I make it a bit darker so you can see a bit more. So that way you should see, yes, now it's sharp. You should see now my iPad screen, or my whole iPad actually. So, so Martin said in a side question here, the good thing about the WorkVisual was the use of underlayer that could be removed before making the movie. Are there alternatives for that? So that's one of the critical points. I'm talking to the guys from Procreate at the moment, if they could integrate that feature into Procreate. So it's not yet there. There are some but not very, not 100% safe solutions for if you work with a very gray background. But yeah, Hasse already says it works. So perhaps you have, Hasse can share that later on, right? So let me start with what we do in the WorkVisual app. So actually, it's a brand new WorkVisual app that I have on my iPad here, because it's the new iPad Pro, and I'm, by the way, very happy with it, especially with the pen, because it's always like on. So the new iPad pen, the Apple Pencil, is loaded, like fully loaded all the time. So it makes it much more convenient to work with. So when we look at what we have in the WorkVisual app, and just to kind of reconcile what we did here, we have those short listings, right? This is something we can't do in Procreate actually at the moment. So you have to get used to 1 or 2 clicks more in the app when you're using Procreate. But in terms of the style of the line, so I always worked with 3 layers, right? So if you have a different style, of course, that's fine, but I wanted to show you how I teach drawing on the iPad and how I use the iPad for drawing, and therefore I always used 3 layers. And the first layer is just a normal layer with 100% opacity. The second layer is always a 24% opacity layer. And then we have a full opacity layer in the back, which is basically, I draw my lines in the very first layer. I normally zoom in a bit, and then let me see, then I draw my people or whatever we want to draw, like this. Then I go for the next layer, which is the second one. I normally switch my brush, but that I don't do in Procreate anymore. So I use the same brush, but I draw my shadows, and then I go for the last layer, switch to a colored brush, and then color it in. So that's my style of working. And those who learned with me, they know that style. Of course, you could like zoom to 100% by clicking here and see your whole picture. So actually every drawing would look like this. I have my line layer, my shadow layer, and my color layer. The shadow layer on 24% is very important because it's not on multiply mode anymore. It's on 24%, because now if I export this picture as a PNG file, I can integrate that into my Keynote or PowerPoint presentation without any background. And if I would have, for example, which I don't have now, but if I would have a shadow outside of my person here, that shadow would darken everything that is lying underneath in the Keynote presentation itself. So we're generating like a multi-dimensional shadowing kind of thing in Keynote with creating those Power PNG files, which is only working if you have opacity coming down, because the multiply effect is not applicable for example, Keynote. It doesn't understand it. You just don't see the gray then. So that's why I work this way. The exact same way to work you can do in Procreate too. So I will just switch to Procreate for a second. And before I explain Procreate to you in the fullest, I will show you how we do the same thing here, right? So let me see. You know what happened just now? A friend at Apple just bought the WorkVisual app just in this minute and is freaking out how cool it is. Fuck. So, okay, sorry for the strong word. Good. Let me see what happens here. You never know. Let me drink a glass of water. Good. It's a bit of warm in here now. And I'm totally out of concept. So let's see, now that somebody at Apple at Apple is buying the app, who knows what happens? Okay. What I do, and we continue just like, we just see, I just do as if we would need to switch to Procreate, right? That could work. Okay. So the thing is, in Procreate, I work the same way like I did in the WorkVisual app. So in Procreate, if you don't know Procreate, you have, and hopefully you see that good enough in the camera. Let me see, move it a bit down so you can see better. In Procreate, you have the layers up here in the right corner, and you have a plus sign like in the WorkVisual app. With a movement to the left, you can delete your layers, right? And with a tip on the N here, you can actually play with the opacity and all those other things that you will, in my case, never use, right? So that's why I never used Procreate in the beginning, because I found like too many features. But if you concentrate yourself, that's fine. So I have the lines, and the nice thing with Procreate is that you can name them differently, right? So you can say lines, and you can choose shadows, and that you can do with the layers. I'm just recognizing that I have the German version here, so I will translate what I do here for you guys. The second one is, for me, shadows, as well as in the Procreate app. And if you tap on the N, you can play with the opacity here, which is in Germany Deckkraft, opacity. And I put it to 24, 23%. 24 is the best one for me. And then I have a third layer, which is color, just down here. You always have in Procreate a background, which is not kind of going away. So this is kind of a standard thing you have in Procreate. So if you want to create a PNG later on, you can just deactivate that background here, for example, and you have a transparent picture. Good. So what I do here, I go to lines. So that's my first thing. And then I choose here on the right upper corner, my colors. The color in this case, and I show you how to customize that one too, I use a black, and I have my own lines, like my own brushes created. So I try to create like WorkVisual app kind of brushes here in Procreate. And for my lines, it's looking like this. And normally in that size, and I have a file later on, which I will share with you, which describes how I do it. So there I draw, I'm zooming in a bit, and then I normally draw as well my guy. You see that it has a bit of a like it is not perfectly the same brush, but I feel that you see here it's actually too small. So I feel that if you see this one here and this one a bit smaller, let's see here. If you see this is a bit thicker here. I took a bit of more pressure, and this is a bit thinner. But in terms of the style of the lines, it's quite okay. It's quite nearby. And then I go to my shadows. I just click on the layers, shadows, and then I continue drawing here. I don't take care if I click anywhere or something. And then I go to my color. I have to change, unfortunately, the color, but actually I stay with the same pencil. So I never changed, actually I literally never changed the brush anymore, but I just use my pressure of the pen to have a bit of a broader coloring brush, right? So I think it looks very similar. I see it, my team does see it, like you will see it, but actually, to be honest, the client will never see the difference, right? Normally, we are the ones who think like, yeah, we need to these kind of things. But I freed myself up a bit and said like, yeah, let's just go for it and see how it works. I think that brush is quite nice. It is at the thickest. If you go for the thickest version, it can make this kind of thickness here. And it can be very, very thin. So literally hair thin. So you can play with that a bit too. So that's how I use the same kind of structure with the layers here. I have my lines, shadows, and colors, but I only use one type of brush here. I've created some more because, for example, I have a static thing one, and I can actually, that's good with Procreate. I can share those brushes with you later on. So when I send out the recording for it, I will send like as well an email with my settings, with my brushes and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to, you just have to import to your Procreate those brushes. So a thin one, the thin, it's too big here. So the thin static one is sometimes nice for writing. So I like that one if I want to write something which is not too thick, and then here it's a bit stronger. So if I want to have a bit of a playing with the font, I like to use another brush. The color I actually don't use the color one, but it could be used because it's like with pressure sensitivity, you can be very broad here, but very thin as well. So that's nice in terms of brush engine. Eraser, I don't ever use a special one for eraser. And then I have a sticky note one because you can create small, very, very quick sticky notes with Procreate here with that brush. So as I'm drawing sticky notes quite often, I found it's easier than always drawing those lines and filling the color and all that kind of stuff. It's faster this way, and then playing with the size this way here. That's easier. So I will send you this brush set so that you can just load it in. I've called it Holger's brushes, but you can of course call them, I think you can just rename them and call them differently. And I never go back into the deeper mechanics of the brushes actually, right? So here in Procreate, you can use like all the different types of what you can play with the dynamics. I did this once until I liked the dynamics of this kind of special brush, and then I left it alone. I never thought about it again. So it's my way of working, and that's basically how I help myself to not be overwhelmed by all the complexity and all the possibilities actually in Procreate, because you can do infinite. There's like no limitation, which is not good for us as visual facilitators, right? Because we want to be as focused as possible. So that's actually the baseline of what I do. As you see, unfortunately, there is no quick way to change brushes and color in combination, but this is something I'm in contact with Procreate too, in terms of, could this be done? Could there be like a plugin for it for people like us or something? So I'm in conversation with Procreate to see how we can make that possible. So Marco, I see your question and I will address it a bit later when I've when I figured, like when I covered the very basics, okay? So that's how I work. I have the same layers. I have one brush where I'm working with, and the only thing that you have to remember or be careful with is you have to keep in mind one more thing that you had not to do in the WorkVisual app, which is the size of the brush. So at the moment you see kind of this kind of size of the line brush, which is going down when I reduce the pressure. So light pressure is thin, and that's the strongest pressure. It's not getting thicker than this one here. This is due to here on the left, the size of the brush itself, right? So you can play with that one. And I normally, and that's what I have in a description file. I think I even have it here. Let me see. I think I created that in Procreate actually. Did I? Or didn't I? No, I most likely, or perhaps, I don't know, I created it, I think on the other iPad, and I didn't transition it to here. So I created a file that is describing all the line thicknesses which I'm using. So basically, my standard is that I use this line here in 50% size, right? Which means here on the left, you see that there are percentages, and I go for normally roughly 50%, which is kind of this size, which is nice for me because I can play with very thin lines and then a bit thicker. That's creating a good kind of dynamic when you get used to it. And basically I stay with it, or I go for the other brush. I never touch this here because that's kind of opacity of the brush. I never use this. You have undo with 2 taps, with a 2-finger tap, which is quite convenient, right? So you can do this one here, and redo is here on the left corner. I like the 2-finger touch because that's quite convenient. And I even started training myself using the double tap of the new iPad Pro, because you have kind of a menu where you last drew. You have a pop-up menu. And actually what I have is I use Löschen, which is the eraser, and I use Zeichnen, which is the brush. So if I don't have to go all the way up here to switch between the eraser and the brush, but I just do it here and say Löschen, like erase, go back to drawing, go back to eraser, go back to drawing, right? So that's quite convenient to do in Procreate with the new double tap option of the pen. So that's really convenient if you train yourself. It makes you much more quicker than before. So that's kind of the major and basic thing. Yes, exactly. You can, Lucas said, you can switch, actually with the double tap, you can switch the options, what should happen, which is basically hidden here in the menu. And then you can, somewhere here, I think it's Gestensteuerung in this case. Yes, you can have a quick menu, and there you can say what's happening, and then you have the double tap and all that kind of stuff. So that's the basics. Hopefully that's clear. If not, shout out, ask questions, whatever. So going back to the WorkVisual app that we have here, you have this feature that you can go to 100% at one stat, like instantly, which helped me a lot, because when I was zoomed in like hell and was working very detailed here, sometimes I lost track of where I am, and I just pushed like 100%, and then I saw everything, which was very convenient to have a good overview. The same thing works in Procreate with just a quick snap of your finger, of 2 fingers, right? You're zooming in and zooming out with your 2 fingers. And if you do like a like a very, let me see, I'm just undoing, right? So when you do a very quick, you see, it's going to 100% zoom. So it's how I look back and say, okay, that's where I am, zooming in again, working better, like writing here, for example, going back, okay, that's how I work, and then going back and forth. So with a very quick snap, you can see everything at once. I think that's very important, for me at least. So that's what we did here. As I said, unfortunately, the presets don't work, but we had the presets here, our color presets in WorkVisualApp, right? So where you could predefine your colors, and you could have different presets for different clients. So your colors changed as well. This is totally doable in Procreate as well. So, and I needed some time to figure out how that exactly works, but you have on your color sheet here, you have different palettes that you can create with colors, and you can create new palettes as well. So you create a new palette with a plus sign, and you go, for example, for your ring color here, and then you choose some colors. You just push one of the fields here in that area to add that color, right? This color. You can play. You can even. I'm not sure. You can even move them around with a long hold. But I was not sure how to get rid of it. But that's how you can build your palette very easily, as well as just typing in hex or hue, saturation, brightness, right? Red, yellow, and green, blue, all those kind of stuff. So it's very convenient. You don't have to switch to another app for doing that, and you can create your custom palettes. And actually, you can create infinite custom palettes. So you can create for every client you work with. You create a separate color palette, which is customized for the client, and you never have to think about that twice again. If you want to get rid of a color here, just do long hold on that one and then delete. Actually, like we did it in the WorkVisual App too. And then in Procreate, you can just remember by sliding to the left, normally you open something up like sharing or deleting or duplicating. So that's what I do here. I just delete this, as this is my standard now. If you want to have my standard, I can put it in the email as well, if that helps you. Good. Short stop to drink some water. Are there more questions? So Marco has one. I will address that in a second, but any questions so far? Good. Please remind me if that is bumping again against my jacket. Good. Half an hour. That's a good timing, I think. So Marco asked about how can you delete or move objects. This is, I'm not 100% convinced yet, but it is quite powerful too. So just to remember ourselves is, we had a basic version of a lasso tool here in the WorkVisual app, where we could have one layer and then choosing one part of it and then moving it around, except, and it would create a new layer with it automatically, right? That's what we had. In Procreate, that is much more sophisticated and thought through. So you have this S sign here in the upper left area. And this enables you to, for example, say, working with the lasso, and then you have different options, like, for example, that you want to duplicate the content. If you duplicate the content, it creates actually the same thing on a separate layer, right? And then what you can do is you can use the arrow sign here to just move that part around, make it bigger, flip it around if you want to, right? All those kind of things. You can even do something with, I don't know, playing around with it, stretching it, so you're very flexible, right? So that you can do. But the most powerful thing, I think, in terms of Procreate is that you can do that with all the layers at once. So, and that's something I needed to research a bit for, but if you have activated one of the layers, which is the lines here, and you swipe the other layers to the right, Yeah, did you see that? Like this. You have them combined. You will work on all three of them. So if you now use, for example, your lasso tool here, then switch to the arrow to move it around, see what's happened. That's really magic. Da-da-da. You can move everything around, and they're still on separate layers. So if you're finished, right, and you just do this one here, they're still on separate layers, but they moved all together. I think, actually, I did some graphic recording, like graphic recording, I don't do too much more anymore, but the visual facilitations, and this really helped me a lot in terms of like, oh yeah, I could move that a bit here and that a bit here. So really creates a lot of possibilities. So again, you just swipe them to the right here, and then you can actually move them all or use a specific part, move it around. I think this is super powerful. I mean, do you agree? I think you should agree, right? So I was very happy to see that feature. It's very, very powerful. Delete objects is actually then, Marco, as you ask for it, deleting is with the eraser, right? So you really have to go and like get rid of it with the eraser. Actually, that's important. You don't have like a, you can't, I didn't find a way to say I select something here and I don't have an like there is no option that I could delete this, right? It's only, I can't do it. So I need to use the eraser. You can only delete a selection in terms of you deselect it, but you can't delete what's in the selection. Is that clear? So you can get rid of the selection itself, but not of the content of the selection. Hopefully that's clear, Marco. Yeah, it would be nice. So perhaps that's something I take on my list to speak about, like speak to them. Good. I think the selection tool is very powerful in Procreate because you can do all those layers together. That's quite powerful. Good. Then we have another question from Renata about the canvas size. What is the WorkVisual one, and that I should type in Procreate? Okay, so WorkVisual always took the screen size, which was 2000 something. I don't have it in mind. I needed to research actually how much it was exactly, but we always had a bit of a bigger resolution because we exported it automatically in double size, I think, which was 3,000 to 4,000 something. In Procreate, it works like this. Let me see that I can show you this. I can show you two things actually here. So in Procreate, let me answer the question by explaining you some other things and other stuff as well, right? So you see, I've already worked in Procreate a bit, created some sketches, tried out some private stuff as well, but as well like a lot of working stuff as well. And you have basically this as your library. It's a bit of a pity that we can't search in it. So in WorkVisual, we could search for tags at least, or even, as it was not buggy, for titles. Here you can't search. But what you can do is by, for example, pulling over one image on another, you can create basically like a staple, and then you have both in one, which helps you organize stuff, right? That's, for example, how I do. You might have seen it that I'm working on a visual library for people, right? So here, when I put on this one, I have hidden, now it's nearly 90 drawings of people that I want to turn into a visual library later on. And I try to draw actually every day, at least one or two of them. And this helps me to get accustomed as well to the app. So what you see here is every time I try to understand something new, I find a way to really work with it. So this is my way to really in-depth getting used to the dynamics of the strokes, to how I zoom in, zoom out, getting all those muscle memories working, and creating something that would be helpful then later on. So that's what I'm doing here, but it helps me to stay a bit organized. But as you see, it's a mess anyway for now because I'm never good at organizing stuff. But what you see is, and I messed it up for this webinar already, I have, like, you see a Dean A4 default and a default Holger. So the thing that we could create in the WorkVisual app was that we have a default drawing that we can, well, every time we create a new drawing, it would open up the same settings, like the layers and what did you have as well? You have the layers, you had the colors, right? You could place a logo if you want to, a pictured layer, whatever you want to have in there was set. So if you're working for a full day for a client, you had the same structure for 20, 25 drawings. That was very convenient, and you can't do this in Procreate. But I'm using a workaround. So basically what I do is I have created this default here, which normally should not contain then content. Let's get rid of this. So this. So I created this drawing, which has lines, shadows, and colors. Shadows is prepared with the 24%, and I have my brush activated. And then I created this default, and I don't use the plus sign to create a new drawing, but I use the Auswählen is select. I go to my default and I duplicate it, and then X, and then I have my new drawing. So every time I have this, I have my lines set up and I can work right away. So I have the same thing. So that's how I kind of have a workaround with the default, because then you can place, for example, if you want to, you can, for example, place a picture, which I will show you later on a bit more, or not. Oh, it's buggy when it's connected. Doesn't show me pictures now. Let's see where that ends. But you can place pictures or logos, or perhaps you have in the color, in the background layer, you want to, or in the color layer, you want to have your Twitter handle or something, right? La 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 la. And this will be the same in all the drawings that you actually duplicate from this one. So you have the possibility to have a default, but not by putting on plus, but going to select, then select your default, duplicate it, and that's it. And if I have a job for a full day, or for example, for 2 or 3 days, I go on select, duplicate my default. They stay selected actually, and I just select those others too. And in that way, I just do it twice or 3 or 4 times, and I have all my default drawings already prepared. So now I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So a lot to work on, and I don't have to think about it when I'm on site with my job. So I prepare those up front, and now I have to delete all those because they mess up my library. When you want to set up those defaults, you just go on the plus, and you have some pre-prepared, like a 4K, A4, like paper, something, but you can do a default, and then you can go on pixels. You can even say it's centimeters, it's inches, it's millimeters. So you're super flexible in terms of putting it. And the interesting thing is that you can go quite big. So if we go for, let's say, is that possible even? That's too big. Let's see. Yeah, so you could go even for like 7 to 5. So now I have 70 to 50 centimeters, which is quite big already, and it can still work on 6 layers. So the layer counter goes down the bigger you choose your drawing, which allows you to go quite big. And as we learned in the past, this is not your final printing size, because nowadays printers are able to print lower resolutions in higher like outcomes as posters than we think. So you can really work in a nice size, and you can predefine that for yourself. I can and I will share my default drawing with you, with all of you. So you get the default and you can just import it to your Procreate. I used, as you see perhaps in a very small here, 6,400 to 3,600 pixels, which is a 16:9 ratio, which is nice because if you have this size and you go for, let me see, you go for the sharing option. Yeah. Give me 1 second. Yep. So normally what you would see is, you should see like you should see my iPad screen directly now and not my camera anymore. Hopefully that works. I have a lot of windows open here now. So now you see everything I do. Even if I'm zooming in and I'm drawing my stuff here. But Procreate allows you as well to say within the on the second on the right side, which is Einstellung preferences, right? With preferences, you can say that you can project your canvas. So AirPlay your canvas. When you activate that, you have the full screen that we use for in WorkVisual too, right? And the nice thing is that if you have created, for example, a 16:9 ratio picture, a canvas, it will display in full white without any borders. So if I, just for showing you the difference, if I go for another ratio, you would have those black lines right and left from the canvas. But if you have a 16:9, it is perfectly aligned with your presentation. And as it is very big, like 6,000 something to 3,000 something pixel, you can really zoom in quite deeply without losing the quality in terms of pixels and all that kind of stuff. You can work very long on such a canvas, longer and with more context than with the WorkVisual app in the past, actually. So we can do the same thing that we did in WorkVisual with the full and follow mode. We can do here with AirPlay Canvas, right? I show that on the IPEO camera again, so you can see what I did here. Ta-da. So let me see, where's my chat? I saw that somebody is writing something. Okay, yeah, you're welcome, Renata. So you see with this small tool here, hidden in the preferences with it, which is the second last one here, you have, this is called in English AirPlay Canvas. If you deactivate it or activate it, and that's it. It works pretty solid. The only thing, and those of you who saw me presenting with the app, with the WorkVisual app, and those of you who took my courses, you know that I present with the WorkVisual app and doing some like switching in between different drawings and preparing stuff to present it. At the moment, the problem is when you go out of your drawing into the gallery and you have it's called Project Canvas. Thank you. If you project Canvas and you're going into the gallery, the screen turns black, which is a bit of a distraction sometimes. So that's a bit of a pity at the moment. But actually, as I know it from the WorkVisual app, but because we have the same thing, it is a very small adjustment. It's easy to do if you are aware of the problem. And therefore, I hope that Procreate can integrate that quickly. And of course, I need to make a date now with my Apple contact. If we can get the WorkVisual app like Apple native or something. No, let's see what happens. Good. Who would be in for, if Apple says they want to take over the project, I need some people to help me in executing that one. So you could think about that. You could write like a yes or something in the chat if you like to help me building that, if they really are interested in it. Okay, nobody's writing yes in the chat, so yay, Jörg, thank you for the support. No, who knows? I don't know. I'm just a bit like, for years I'm telling him like, yeah, and I've got that app, but I didn't want to push him too much, and then now he bought it after I announced that I would close it. Okay, let's see. Marco said, Lucas, yeah, there is cut and ausschneiden. Yeah, right. You can most likely do something. I mean, everybody can help us. We will see. Good. So let's see. What else? You can create those kind of videos. There's a video option here, and you can do the like a quick replay of it. The problem is that you see the undos, so Procreate will take over the undos, and they don't have the option to deselect layers. I am in contact with them, as I said, and this is one of the points we're discussing in terms of could they integrate this into their workflow. The other possible way to do is to use a very, very light gray, as your, like, let me just, I have some difficulties find the right words here. So you draw, for example, you have your drawing, which is the whole kind of video kind of thing. And you see I can draw very nicely when I'm drawing fast. So this is like my cool complex drawing. And then you can go for like going down to like really, really like light to 1 or 2%. Perhaps you see it still on the video. Hopefully you see it on the video. Even at 1%, at 1% is very low. So 2% is possible. And then you actually draw everything on your line layer and really like copy something through and draw everything piece by piece. But you can't make a mistake, so don't do an undo. But like you can't make it, you have to be straight and do your thing. And then later on, when you export that as a video, you can, if you, for example, use After Effects as the cutting device, or even an iMovie, you can adjust the contrast or the lightness of your video, and that light gray, you can make it vanish in the final product by just raising the contrast a bit and raising a bit the lightness, right? The brightness. And then you can get rid of that gray. It's not the perfect solution. It's not that convenient like we have with the WorkVisual exporter. But to be honest, a lot of people had big problems and issues with using the WorkVisual exporter. So for them, it didn't work anyway. So we were lucky that for us, it worked. So that's the workaround at the moment. And that's the only workaround I know for now to create those videos. So yeah, I know. Actually, I I don't have an iPad anymore that is on iOS 11, which is a pity because I can't use the WorkVisual exporter anymore. It doesn't work actually at the moment. So I need to get used to something else as well. Good. Yeah, Rainer, full and follow mode. That's something I covered. So I can quickly show it again. So in the toolbar here, if you activate the toolbar, and let me just get, here we are. Then you have preferences, or in German, it's called Einstellung. And there you can Leinwand projizieren or project canvas. And that will enable you to have full and follow mode on Procreate as well. And it works very sufficiently and solid. Right? Then the same thing applies for, but let me see that I, at the moment, stopped the Bildschirm stopped. This one is dem. Okay, because you can as well integrate pictures. So you can integrate a photo, for example, but I don't know what's happening here at the moment. Actually, it's the first time I encountered that bug. So the pictures are vanishing right away. I'm not sure why that is happening. Something must have to do something with the, let me see if I deplug this one here. No, it's going away. So I will just see if I can restart Procreate. I'm not super used now to the new swiping up instead of the home button, actually. Let's see if that works. No. Whatever ever happens, here's a bug I encounter. Normally you can integrate a photo or take a photo and then use the same techniques like we always did, right? So for example, I'm not sure if I have it still in one of those. So all of these drawings here actually, right? All of these drawings of the people drawing, what I use here is just a quick reminder for those who are not like, who never took a course with me or saw how I do it. I normally go for, let's see, I have pencil sketches. I take a pencil sketch, which I do on paper, right? Or in this case, I think that was Beanie. And then I would open that in Procreate. Let's see if I can open it directly in Procreate. Yes, here we are. So add to Procreate. Let's see if that works. There we are. Here's the image in Procreate. And what I normally do then is to say plus, plus, plus. So I have my 3 layers. Line layer. These are the lines. I have my shadow layer. And I have my colors. That's kind of the magic trick behind most of the drawings when people think like, oh, that's so cool. And how, like, normally we always like, as well, Lucas from my team, Beanie from my team, Nele, me. So in a lot of cases, we use just plain paper and a pencil, and we do those sketches on paper and on real paper. And then you can, I mean, in this case, it's a bit too small for me, and I take, which one should I take? This one here, like this. And I go for my line layer, and then I just copy through, in quotes, just because it still needs some experience to get the strokes right. But you get the idea. You don't have to think too much about the composition, about how everything works together. It's already done. And that way, I can just go through it. It's a bit of meditation work. It's like when you create a comic, zooming in, zooming out. doing those drawings, playing around with my thickness of the lines, going for my shadows, staying with the same brush as I said, exactly the same brush. I don't change anything because that makes me quicker, and I don't need different sizes because I can work with pressure. I most likely deactivate that so I don't see it. And then something interesting happens here. There's another possibility in Procreate. If you are on your line layer, for example, and you click on it, it's called reference. It should be the same in English, reference, with a C and an E, I think. It's the third last in this menu here. And if you activate that one, something very interesting happens. And now see what happens here. You choose your color, and then you drag and drop from the color circle here into, you drag and drop from the color circle. Boop. Isn't that nice? I so much like this feature. It's like, boop. But it only works with closed shapes. Deep. You can, here, it's not working because I have an open thing. But if you, it depends on your style. Mine is sometimes a bit too open, so I can't fill it. But actually what it does, it's creating a reference. So all the lines here are defining where the color goes. So I can fill automatically, but it's still on a separate layer. You see that? I can, of course, still fill like the rest with my pencil and with my brush, which is no problem at all. But if I want to be quicker in some like situation, it really helps because you just drag and drop and you fill everything at once, which is a super powerful feature, I think, that helps us as facilitators as well to be, much quicker at some point, because this kind of coloring that I do here, it takes a lot of time sometimes. And yeah, sometimes you just want to not do this, but be quick and just fill something up, right? So that's how I do this one here. I think that's a feature, I really like that feature. It's a filling feature. You just like, and the nice thing is if you have those reference layers, so you have the lines and you go to reference. And then, for example, I draw here a close circle, and then you go to your color layer, choose a color, boop, filled, right? I think that's super powerful. You can just keep the layer on reference. Yes, you can leave it on reference, or you take it away. It doesn't make a difference, actually. It doesn't change anything else than just taking this as a reference layer. It came from like the idea of comics, where you inking the lines and the outlines and then just dragging color into it. It's much more easy than just like drawing everything. And here's another thing that's nice with Procreate is a tool that's, I think they introduced it quite lately, is when you keep holding to what you've drawn, it makes it straight to form. So let's see you have a bumpy thing here. Did you see what happened? You're not quite sure. You keep holding and it makes an ellipse. And you can even then, let's see, holding it, makes an ellipse, and then you can form, and then you can even play with it. So that's how you can create perfect ellipses in Procreate, or straight lines. Keep to it. Keep to it. You can even play with it, making some fun with it, having boxes, right? All those kind of stuff. The only thing you have to do is you don't have to do anything beyond holding to it. Keep the pen on the surface still, and then it's doing the thing. Another very powerful thing, and then you go for your color. Blop. That's it. I think that's like, it's super powerful when you, for example, say, oh yeah, that would be nice to have like an orange frame now around the whole thing. And you just go like very quickly and hold it. Oh, I messed it up. And then hold it like going here, here, here. It's up. And then you have your frame. So that's kind of a super practical thing, I think, to do. And you can play with it and still like, okay, I can adjust it here. Of course, this is something you have to be careful when you do live facilitation. This is eating your time like nothing, right? So if you start working like this when you do a graphic recording, good luck with your timing. But if you're preparing something, for example, templates, posters, sometimes you want to have a straight line, and perhaps you remember that what I told you in one of my videos, what I do is like using, like helping myself in terms of like just using, doesn't work, like using something to draw a straight line. This is not necessary anymore. So I think that's quite powerful too in terms of Procreate. So just holding to it and it will make the work for you, right? Good. Who knew that feature? I mean, I discovered it like by accident and then like, yeah, this is so cool. Hopefully you like it too. Good. Let's see where we are at the moment. What I showed you is that when we're looking at the WorkVisual app here, we have the possibility, like the different layers that's working as well, integrating photos. Oh, you see photos are vanishing here too. That's interesting. That's something, I don't know. The iPad updated overnight, so there is a problem definitely. So normally you could integrate pictures as well. Anybody else has that problem, or is it only mine? You have the opacity, right? You could, there was another feature that we had, which is locking pixels. If you remember here, if you remember, you could, for example, you have your color layer and you lock that with the lock here. What you could do is you choose another color and you just block that color in, right? You remember? Or even if you want to, you can fill it and you have a different color, which was very convenient to do, I think, when you want to change the color quickly of a whole drawing or something, or a new client. What I do, for example, is what we do is recoloring visual libraries for clients if they want to buy them and they don't have an orange, they have red or a blue or a green, and just go over it and quickly do that. The same thing you can do in Procreate as well is you go to your layer, you click on the activated layer, and it's called Alpha Lock. Alpha Sperre here, it's quite in the middle, but it's in English it should be Alpha Lock, right? Yeah, ditch in concept, that's true, Jörg. It could be the same. So Alpha Lock means the same thing. So I now have my orange, and you see, I just draw where the lines are. I never tested this. Let's see if I can fill this. Yeah, that works too. So you can even say in the layer, you click on it and there is fill layer, the fourth, and then you fill only those parts who have pixels on it as well. So going back, you have the same possibilities here like you had in the WorkVisual app. Alpha Lock, which is hidden here, click on it or to deactivate it or activate it again. And you see what's happening here in the very small window here. If the Alpha Lock is activated, it turns out in those squares like it would be transparent. You see that, the difference to those with the backgrounds here? That's indicating visually that you have an Alpha Lock indicated, right? So that's what you can do as well. Let's check WorkVisualApp as well. Again, what we could do, undo, redo. Yes, we can do that as we've seen. Transform, clear, everything possible. So actually what we've done here, everything is possible in Procreate too. The only thing that's not possible is that you have those tags, unfortunately, which is a pity. But for now, you can't tag things and you can't search. Beyond that, you have literally all the features. And I think the gallery works as well quite nicely in to say there is a nice overview. Let me see. I think I can. Doop, 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 doop. So that's better. You still have a very good overview of what you did, and I like to use the staple option. For example, I can't show you in detail here. I can show you this one here. For example, this one in November in 2018. This is like a graphic recording job with 14 drawings in it, and I just stapled them. So I have the whole job in the staple, right? So this helps me to get a bit of organized here, and I still have to do some work on stapling the rest. But so if I click on this, I have all my graphic recordings, and you see this is created live. And I think still it looks nice and slick. And yeah, Jill, thank you. You say you leave. Listen to the full webinar. And if you have questions afterwards, just reach out. Thank you for joining, Jill. So you see that the style, I think I can draw in the same style. So if you have a similar thing or you learned with me, for example, you should be able to replicate your style as well in Procreate if you get used to the dynamics. But I think the overall optic here is quite nice. It works well, and it literally nearly looks like I would have created in the WorkVisual app, but with the difference that I have a 16:9 ratio in this case, and I fitted more onto this page because the resolution is higher, and therefore I can draw smaller actually, right? I can fit more on the page, which is not too bad because sometimes I only had like 15 minutes on one canvas in WorkVisual, and here I can cover at least half a minute, sometimes 45, half an hour or 45 minutes, which is quite convenient. Let me see, just throw through what I did here. Sometimes it's a bit bigger or a bit less to do here with a bit of more of a white space, testing some writings with colors and stuff, and filling or just drawing with a filler without lines. So you can play with that, but still it's the same thing. Of course, I mess up my layers when I'm working live. That's always happening, but yeah, you never know. Let's see. What I like here is you can as well work like a bit artistic if you want to, right? With like with a pencil and that kind of stuff. So that's nice, I think. Anybody knows Toothless? I like that character so much. That's a great character. So you can play with that a bit and doing, yeah, some great stuff, I think. So that works well. Marco has another question. Can you show how you see which zoom level you're using? Yeah. How do you ensure you're in the right zoom setting when working on details without losing orientation? So that's a bit more tricky than we had before, Marco. So we had this feature, just to remind the others what the question is about. When you're working in WorkVisual, you can say like, okay, I work in 450%, and that's kind of my size where I work with, right? And I know that this kind of size is giving me this kind of detail and da-da-da. And when I'm zooming out, I see like that's the size. So, and when I'm writing, I'm writing in normally 600% or something. I know when I write this size, it will end up quite okay in terms of like you get used to it. This is not possible so far in Procreate. So you need to get used to start somewhere and then always hold orientation to what you did before. One thing, because we're speaking about zooming, is one very important thing actually. You go to Einstellungen or system preferences, like preferences, and you go to gesture, how is it called in English? Gesture, whatever, the last point here. You have a lot of options here, but what you want to go for is, let me see, yeah, is the last one here, general. And you want to have, this is in German, it's mit zwei Finger Zoom drehen. It's like turning with 2-finger zoom. You want to deactivate that, in my personal view, because what happens is rotate with pinch zoom. Thank you, Hasse. I just activate this. What happens is that you can move around the canvas, right? Which is nice if you're stuck to one position and you can draw nicer lines that way and then turn it around and do the same direction again with your hand, right? So that's nice. But normally I would say for example, in my life, I'm moving the iPad instead of the canvas itself, right? So I'm moving the iPad to have better angle to draw my lines. So, and the problem is that if you zoom in, right, you zoom in here and you do something and then you write here and then you zoom out and you see like, oh, fuck, sorry, oh, damn, darn, you say, I've written the wrong way around, right? That happens if you have still rotate activated. So what you want to do is you go to the preferences, the gesture controls, general, and you deactivate the rotate with pinch zoom, which takes a lot all the pain because it's not rotating anymore. The same thing, I think, is it here? Yes, the touch actions, deactivate touch actions. So this is activated because that way you can't draw with the finger, right? Which takes away a lot of pain as well. So when you have activated this one, you can only draw with your pen, right? This helps, this really helps, because then the gesture control is much better than having both activated, because the iPad has to think about, is this really a drawing action or not? So coming back to your question, Marco, we have, we are on our line layer and we have the standard 50% brush, which goes for my standard 6400 to 3600 resolution. I have 50% in that brush here, and I will send you the picture where I explain that. I normally have to start somewhere on the canvas with 100% zoom and see what I want to do, right? Let's say I write my title here. This is, by the way, still okay in 100% zoom, but it's not 100% sufficient for me. You see, I'm drawing some not so nice things here and here. So what I do is, like I do in the WorkVisual app, but I have my zooms, but I literally say, okay, I want to write the title here. So I draw my T. I zoom in, and then I stay with my title, and then move it. And then my writing is better. And it would be even better if I concentrate a bit more and being not in the webinar and trying to talk to you and think about what I do next. And normally I would use my left hand more to zoom in, zoom out, but it's a bit of hurting my finger. So that's why today I'm a bit one-handed, but it works. And then when I then have, for example, the first drawing, I would go for draw the head, for example, of that guy in 100% zoom, and then go here and draw the rest, which is as well helpful if you draw some stuff without having a job for it, right? The drawing of the people that I have here in my library is not only because I want to have a library that I can sell to people or that we can use in our team. It is as well getting used to the how much pinching do I need to create that size of a drawing, right? When I pinch this way, it's that size. When I pinch that way, it's that size. When I press that hard, it's that kind of line. So what I always do is, when I try to master such a tool, is draw as much as possible without being live for a job, but draw up front and build that muscle memory. It's actually something I teach my students when I was teaching drawing back in art school. And I mean, Benny, one of my team members, is one of the best examples for it. If you train something often enough in terms of drawing, it's all muscle memory. And if you want to master an app, it's muscle memory as well. So over time, you will get used to, when I pinch that much, right? When I pinch that much, I'm good. When I'm going out and I pinch that much, okay, that's a nice size, right? You see how I hit the same size, literally? The same size, nearly? It's always the same size. So I kind of, by working with it, I kind of get used to, okay, that's a size I can work with, and then I can use my normal kind of strokes. So I don't have the control with saying this is 600%. I don't know, right? I don't know if this is 600 or 400%. I don't know. What I did is I tried to learn, okay, pinch, I do it like a nearly full pinch. This is a nice size for my people when I have my canvas set up like this. And I need to pinch like twice, for example, to be more detailed, right? So, but this is a bit of, does it make sense? Right? You could give some like feedback in the chat if that makes sense to you. For me, it's a lot about like, yeah, getting used to how do I pinch, do that often enough, and then it goes down to your habits or routines, and you build some muscle memory. Make sense? Yeah. Let's see. That's answered, hopefully. And then it is, again, as I always say on the iPad, you have to zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, because I personally feel, but I mean, you need to see if that works for you. But for me, the iPad is not a piece of paper. That's the difference, right? With a piece of paper, I would have no zoom in, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, which is, by the way, sometimes a bit annoying when I worked all the time on the iPad, and then I try to draw something on a piece of paper, and I draw like that size, and then I think like, oh, I would like to add some detail. And like, do you know that feeling when you try to zoom in on paper? Like, why it doesn't work? I need a magnifying glass for that. It's a bit annoying. But I have that effect from time to time, like, why can't I zoom in here? So on a piece of paper, my default is 100% zoom, right? Yeah, I touch undo on my paper, right? So most likely when you use Procreate, you will start doing this movement, like, why can't I undo this stroke? Why can't I undo this stroke? So you have the 100% view, which is good and okay, because you have been used to the control of your lines. Might be very small, might be very big and huge on a paper, on a piece of paper. Your arm and your hand are already used to it, because you started using like paper since you were like a baby or whatever age you began. But this is not sufficient on an iPad still, because the sensitivity of the screen is still, and in connection with the pen, is still not there. So I have the feeling when I write that title here, I write in the same way I write normally, it looks different. You see those kind of things here, here, there. It's like the strength is different. They are falling like here, this kind of line here. It is different to when I write in the same kind of manner here, right? So of course it's bigger, so I have more movement and I can control it better. But you have to zoom in and zoom out all the time on the iPad. That's kind of you can't go around with that. You can't, like, I only draw in 100% bloom if I need to be very, very like quick, but I'm staying very rough then. And normally it's only notes for myself, and I will not show them to somebody else because they are too messy in terms of sharing. Right. So looking back, what I said today, what kind of questions do you have beyond that? Did I cover everything you need to know? Is there something open? I give you like 2 secs for just writing your questions. I still have 30 minutes time. So, or if you have any other related question in terms of how I do things on the iPad, now is the time to do it. Yeah, Muddy, or can I say Muddy, or do I say Mike? I don't know. Of course, I think that's like, I wanted to take the time because it's a big step to transition to another app. And of course, I keep you in the loop what happens with my friends at Apple. Who knows? Yeah, it's funny. So I'm just waiting for you to type, and then I continue speaking. Right, Lawrence. Happy to help. And Katja, that's good. I think that I'm just continue talking now a bit. Yeah, thank you, Hasse. The brush is good, I think, isn't it? So what I will do is I share the brushes with you. I think I can share the color palette too. That's possible in Procreate too. I share the default, which I use, the 16:9 default. I think that's quite helpful because sometimes I feel the standard screen size is not big enough, right? It's a bit too small. It's a bit like, it's nice to have the possibility to create more. And I mean, to be honest, with the screen size, I saw a picture like the other day. Hank Vinyans showed that to me, where somebody have drawn like a panorama. They had a panorama projection of, I don't know how much it was, like 8 meters, let's say 8 to 2.5 meters. So very small, thin and long. The nice thing is that you can set up that drawing in Procreate with the right resolution, and then it will be displayed exactly in that way. So that's quite nice, right? It's much more flexible than we had with the WorkVisual App and the WorkVisual App in the past. So yeah, Renata, you never know. Let's see. First, I need to try to make him not upset that he now spent 40 euros on an app that I want to close. So next step will be, in terms of next steps for what I will do in terms of the app, that might be a good update for you here, is I will go for another small update for the WorkVisual app, because that way we can update information on the App Store, and I will lower the price. Not sure if I go for 0 or 99 cents or something, just to not annoy people that they buy like an expensive app that is not existing anymore. Thanks, and you pay it again. So I will lower the price. I will change the description that this app will like stop to exist. And then hopefully everybody is fine with the App Store solution. And of course, I will wait until like what Apple will say, but it is in quotes, or it is only an Apple employee in this, but it's in senior management who's now using it. And then we see, right? That's how, like, then we see how we can continue. And in the meantime, I think Procreate is a good option if you don't fall into the trap that you use all the possibilities that are there. So I never use the smudge feature. I never use all those kind of different brush options. When I want to do a visual facilitation, I stick to what I like really need. And be as smart as possible if you use those tools, right? So in general, I would say that's quite important to say that there are so many tools out there. Just try to design some workflows for yourself and being as lean as possible with those. That's how I always try to understand things and build things here. Good. So there's one question from my side, which is like, so one thing is I'm thinking of just like, we have this Facebook group, and I just wanted to inform you that I would like to like stay with it, like keep it open, and using it for discussing, for example, general digital facilitation things, or somebody's using an iPad, or yeah, drawing digitally. I think that could be a nice channel too for it. And yeah, beyond that, just to let you know what I'm off for, so to say, I will spend the time working on my book, right? So hopefully that will be finished soon, the Enabling Clarity book, which is for now just a cover. But I'm working on that one. I did some great steps already this year, so hopefully that works well. And I'm working on things like the visual libraries and all that, like trying to get those assets out in the world instead of hunting after getting the next release and getting the next update and fixing some bugs and writing support emails and all that kind of stuff. So that hopefully frees up time for doing like a bit more sustainable work for me. So, right, Renata, I will keep up the Facebook page. That's good. Marco is, we can see Marco as well. Like if that doesn't work for you with the wrench icon here, we can figure that out later. If you don't have any questions, actually we can make like an early break today, but I'm happy to stay if you have any further questions. Right. Anything else? I'll wait for a second or so if you have any other questions. Of course, this is still my offer. If you have any problems or questions or whatever, and you figure out you can't cope with something, on Facebook, direct messages, email, whatever, reach out to me. I'm happy to help, happy to nerd out as well about tools all the time. So still, that will not go away. And therefore, I hope to see you soon in one or the other webinar. Who knows what we will bring up in the future, right? So thank you all for joining. Thank you for watching the recording if you watch the recording later. And I hope this was helpful to you, right? So have a good day. And I mean, it's Monday. Great start into the week. I hope you have a very successful year ahead. We're in good times, I think, especially when it comes to digital, and looking forward to see what you're creating online. Good.